Hello, everybody. This is a bit of an experiment. I thought we'd do a bit of something live on a Friday afternoon. I hope this all goes according to plan, but we've never done anything live before like this, so stand by. You will notice down the right-hand side of the page there is a chat window, so feel free to log in and ask questions. I'm just going to sit here writing a little bit of music, and you can ask me whatever you like about your setup, about getting on in the business, all those kind of things, and we'll see how we go. I hope it works out, because it's going to feel very weird if it doesn't. Anyway, look, here I am. I'm in my studio. Just a quick recap on the setup. In front of me is a Raven monitor. I don't use the touchscreen bit of it very much, but it's really nice having it there on the desk in front of me. I've got a Mac Pro 12 core in the other room, and this monitor off to the right-hand side is connected to the PC, which is in the other room. It's a 18-core PC, which is a bit over the top, isn't it? But it's got 128 gigabytes of RAM and lots of SSD, so the whole thing sort of goes, it sort of works perfectly nicely. And every studio needs a little tiny Beethoven sitting at a tiny piano down there. So it's a good thing he's deaf. No, not at all. So anyway, look, you're very welcome. Oh yes, people are starting to log in. How very nice. Okay, look, I'm going to just get on, and I'm going to put my headphones on and write a little bit of... now, when I say write a bit of music, okay, here we go. This is Cubase. As you can see, those of you who know these things, I'm on Cubase. I'm still on Cubase 9. I just haven't found space. Hey, nice to see you, Artem. I haven't found space in my life for moving on to 10. I've got 10, I've got 9.5, but these things, it's a bit like moving house, and you just need to make a bit of time, and it just goes, dear, oh dear. Hello from Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, don't rub it in. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon here, so it must be about, late morning, coming up for lunchtime for you over there? Very nice too. So look, anyway, what I've got here, this was a bit sort of spontaneous. I was, serious musicians do use, but actually interestingly, we've done a number of little polls with our students, and they're about 50-50, hi Richard, between Cubase and Logic. And then there's about 5 or 6% who use Pro Tools, and then there's a tiny smattering of people who use FL Studio and my old DAW, which is Digital Performer. I was surprised it was as low as it was, but anyway, it's really, really, really good. And it doesn't, the message which should come out from all this is it doesn't really matter what you use, it's the music you manage to write. So that's, you do have to approach it differently, and if you're going to try and run a really, really big rig, and I do sometimes run a big rig, as you know. Let me just look over. Let's see. No, that's not the one, is there? No, that's not the one either. There we go. No, anyway, I was trying to see if I could get up my... let's just see if I can find it. No, I can't show you the PC. It doesn't matter. Look, it doesn't matter. Look, okay. So look, I've got a little bit of a very simple little piano riff going. And I thought, maybe I could just see how that goes and see what happens. Richard Cave, how nice to hear from you again. And Zaid from Dubai, very good. Okay, so look, I don't know what we're going to do with this. As you can probably see, I've got a little... So it's E, F, C, B flat. So it's a kind of suspended B flat going on in there. Too similar. No, I'm not gonna come straight in with it. I'm just gonna let it bed in for a time. So what I quite like is, there's something obviously very minimalist about this, that we're sort of working in a little pattern, a very repetitive pattern of 4s going on up there, and I was trying to get a little pattern of going of 3s down the bottom, because I think, that sort of the sort of cross rhythms and things like that. Now, when I load up a string patch, I still go back to Sony Vox's Espressivo strings, which is really silly because it's about as old as the Arc. I mean, they barely invented sampling when they did this, and it still remains one of those wonderfully... It's just really, really... It's, sorry, the question, this is 9.0, it's 9.0.40 or something. So it's basic version 9. So it's not 9.5. I looked at 9.5 and I thought, oh, 9.5 looks... But then they moved a lot of the menus around and things like that, and I thought, oh, how am I going to get my head around this and do this job I'm doing at the same time? And then 10 comes along and it's completely different, and it's really, really good, but it's going to take me a little while just to sort of reconfigure myself, and I just haven't had... that the thing I'm always saying about never make a major change to software when you're doing a job. And we've been doing quite a lot of jobs, and we're just finishing off Robozuna it's a 40-part series for Netflix and ITV, and I've literally just finished season 3 of Jungle Book, and we've got some short films going on with Marvel, so it's all really exciting, but it's the very last thing you do is go, oh yeah, I'm just going to upgrade my software and change everything completely, and then be surprised when it doesn't work. Let's just have a little look. Oh, hello, Gus. Nice to hear from you. From Simple Ideas, it's true. Simple Ideas is good, not trying to make things too complicated too quickly. Anyway, let's just see what happens if we... I'm just going to let it get going again. Okay, quite like this. I'm going to keep this. We're going to need more piano, aren't we? Quick, more piano. Bring more piano in, please. And we're just going to dupe it. Okay. Do I keep that harp going? Votes. Do we keep the harp going? Yeah, why not? It's not quantized, so it's not going to do that. There we go. Let's try that. And where does it go to? Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm going to... Okay, hang on, a couple of questions rolling in here. What's my favourite sample library? Do you know, I was one of those who invested in the original Spitfire Bespoke series, before they did all their commercial stuff. And they produced this incredible library called Chamber Strings, which is the predecessor of all this. And I absolutely loved that sample library. It just sounded so beautifully made. It's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It was very simple, very simple. It hardly had round robins, or it didn't have round robins, but it just sounded great. And I really loved that. So if I had one library, I'd probably keep on using that. But now, I'm mostly Spitfire. I am mostly Spitfire, I have to say. And I think it really does help to focus on one main library and then other bits around it, because it's just much easier to bring everything together when it's all recorded in the same room. It just sounds more coherent, and that's really, really nice. So I tend to, but it's not only Spitfire. I mean, this setup I'm looking at here is I don't know if you can read the little writing at the top. It says mobile template. It's tiny. It's pretty small, and it's just got ensemble patches to save space, emotional piano, some other bits and pieces, a VSL harp. Then there's some... It's mostly Spitfire with a little bit of that's East West Gold in there. Back in the day, remember East West Gold? Oh, what's going on? Is it frozen? Oh, no, it's still working good. Okay, because I'm running everything on one machine, I'm just a little bit cautious it's not going to fall over. So it does definitely help if you're working with one main library, and I've tended to go with Spitfire recently because I think they just make stuff which just sounds so lovely and it really works, and you just love the sound of the room. Sometimes it is a little bit ambient, and I'm not sure how that, but and that's why they've done the studio series. So, okay, I'm going to just float a little bit of flautando in here because it's Friday. Flautando Friday. Okay, that's all right. Now, what else have I got in here? You see, at this point, I tell you what I would use if I had it. What I could do is 8Dio's Adagietto, because it does these lovely, these big swells, and I really like things which have the natural built-in swell, because it just sounds so much better than doing it on the mod wheel. Let me just have a look at a few. More questions rolling in. Favourite album live. Good morning. Thank you for the live stream. Yay! Nice to see you. I've just upgraded from 8 to 10. Oh, right. Wow. That's quite a big jump. And I hope it obviously did work out. How do you get scoring jobs for major people for film, Netflix, etc.? Okay, let's just take a moment to address this question. It's a perfectly reasonable question. I will go shum like that. It takes a very, very long time, is the short answer. Very few people just walk out of school and start scoring for big networks and things like that. I've been doing this a long time. I started writing really, really small stuff, little tiny corporate videos for people I knew, and then you just... The answer is you've always got to write, your music's got to be that much better than the project you're working on. And if you can manage to keep that going, then gradually you will start upgrading from one job to another. And but trying to be distinctive, trying to find a way of being different. And that's much more important now than it was when I started. I mean, because I got paid for writing music when I was like almost 30-something years ago. So it's a really long, completely different landscape. If you're starting now, it's different to how it was when I started out. And it's now being different is even more important, I think, than it was. Back in the day, in the 90s or whatever, you could earn a living just by being good, competent, being able to just sort of do stuff. And you didn't have to be a sort of Daniel Pemberton type, rewrite the world type thing. But now, I think if you're going to try and make any impact, you do have to have a really strong voice. And if you hear those people who are emerging, and I mentioned Daniel Pemberton because he's set his hat very much on doing things differently and sounding fresh and interesting, and he does it absolutely brilliantly. I mean, if you listen to Spider-Verse, work of genius, absolutely wonderful. And I'm led to believe he doesn't use a template. He likes to start with a blank sheet of paper, and you can see why, because if you do use a template, it's always going to sound a variation on the same thing, isn't it? It's going to be the same sounds shuffled about. Whereas if you start from scratch, you're creating a sound which is bespoke to that project, completely new, and that's really, really good. And so, if you want to get to that point, you just do small jobs really, really well, and you develop that original sound, and you get out there and meet people. I'm constantly amazed at people who are trying to get on who don't actually put their stuff out there. They don't have a website, they don't have any social media presence, all that kind of thing. And you think, how's anybody going to find you? I mean, come on, boys and girls. How's anybody going to find you? It's not as though somebody's going to randomly go sort of, excuse me, is there anybody here who helps music? They're not going to knock on your door and just say, are you a composer? You've got to put yourself out there. And that also means, going to film festivals, making friends, because people are not likely to hire you if they don't know you and like you. So you do have to get out there and make friends, and then reinforce that friendship with truly original music. And if you keep doing that, people will notice you and gradually you will rise. That's a long answer to a short question. Do you know if there's a limit to how many instrument tracks you can have in Cubase? I don't think there is. It's not like Logic, where you can only have 256. You can have, as far as I know, as many as you like. Orchestral Tools. Oh, hello, Anne. I really like some Orchestral Tool stuff, very, very much indeed. And I use Berlin Brass a lot. I think it's got a really wonderful, warm, but also it can do the sort of loud thing quite a lot well. I haven't played with the strings. I did play with Stephen Basted's copy of the Woodwinds, and some of it was lovely, and some of it I wasn't quite so convinced. So I've ended up using more Spitfire than anything else, but I absolutely... Hello, electric crystals. I am noticing you. There. You are duly noticed. Let me just have another little look if there's any other questions and all the rest of it. Okay, very good. See, we do these kind of live things all the time with the postgraduate students, and we do this sort of on a regular basis, and we workshop stuff. So it's quite fun to be able to do it with the wider world as well. So anyway, we were a moment ago trying to write a bit of music, weren't we? Or at least we were sort of doing something. Do I usually use ensemble strings, or do you play or record string sections? I always start with the ensemble strings, and I do that because my particular way of working, I like to improvise. I mean, I've recently discovered there are many, many different ways people approach this, and there's a surprisingly large number of people, to me at least, who never play things in. It's all programmed in from the piano roll, or they write in Sibelius, okay, or electric crystals, and then import the MIDI, and then, I would find that very difficult. I kind of just like being able to get a sound which I find inspiring, like a sort of that flautando patch. I really like non-vib these days for some. Anyway, where were we? We were just sort of doing a slightly lyrical minimalist thing going on, weren't we? Well, let's try. Okay. Why don't I? I wasn't recording, but I can do the retrospective record thing. Let's see if it's there. Yes! Oh, thank you, Steinberg. How often does that happen? You play something in and it just sort of works out for no apparent reason. Oh, that's quite good. Suddenly it got very loud, sorry. And that's a really good thing. Retrospective record. It was actually somebody on a YouTube video comment actually said, "You shouldn't lose all that stuff, you should use retrospective record." I go, "What is this retrospective record of which you speak?" And it was great, and it saved my bacon on a lot of times. But that's the kind of occasion when it comes into its own, because actually that's kind of... I've even saved it because I quite like it. It's textural. There's no tune in here, is there? You wouldn't put a tune on this. Now I need something in there about bar 20 something. Okay, what are we going to put in there? I could underpin it with some pits. 2, 3. It does sound a bit Coldplay. Well, there is, you know, if you think about clocks and things like that, that's quite minimalist as well. Actually, if anything, this is sounding quite Johan Johansson and Theory of Everything, isn't it? I mean, it's. I mean, I think the late great Johan Johansson was, you know, he's just such a genius. I mean, because he managed to blend this minimalism with this sort of wonderful lyricism and this restraint, and it's absolutely, on his good days, he was absolutely phenomenal. So he's a great loss to the community. But it's sort of got that kind of, and I love that score, so maybe I'm just recreating something like it here. Those pits have gone all over the shop because I quantized them, and that wasn't the best thing I should have done, really. Never mind. But I can undo that. Now, I'll tell you something I do quite often do. Is it set up for this in here? We'll find out. Okay. If I want to nudge things around, I put it on 128th note, and then I use the nudge palette. So if I'm going to quantize things, the first thing I do is I nudge them so that it's more or less in time. So is it going dun 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 dun? It's going to be on. I think I'll be able to do 8s, won't I? Ish. Yes. Let's see what happens. Then you can nudge them back. So then you set it back onto 128s and use your nudge palette and stick it back, because it's there for a reason. You end up playing early because it sounds in time, because a lot of the time, and this is particularly true of spiccato, I was telling the students the other night, I mean, that if you quantize spiccato so it's on the beat, it always sounds late, because if you think of the way it's played, you know, it's not the very beginning of the sound, the first transient you want, it's the isn't it? And the means you have to shuffle the whole thing a bit forward. That's better. Oh, very good. Yes, somebody's had a go at that. Well, okay, well, this is not dissimilar, is it? Do you know, that's goodbye to the pits. I just don't feel it. I wonder if actually it can work better as a pedal if I just keep the B flat going. Just give it a go. No, not going with that either. How are we doing for woodwind? Hi, woodwind. What have we got here? I don't have very much going on in the woodwind department. Oh, can you show how you process your piano? It's just straight out of the box emotional piano. I bought it when it was still Tonehammer, before they'd gone their separate ways and become Sandown and 8DO. Nowadays, I use several pianos. I use emotional piano, which for things like this works brilliantly. I use Pianotech, which is a sample modeling piano, which I think is probably the best of the lot. And I use 8DO's studio piano, which is really good. It's brighter. So if you need something a bit more kind of, that's the one. It's good. It's great. So anyway, I'm quite fond of that. So are we going to add some... Okay, then we're going to get into something more rhythmic. Is there any flutes there? No, no. Oh, I see why. Maybe, where am I? What am I doing here? What is going on up here? I didn't really check this. I should have checked this template out before I started this, shouldn't I? Oh, well. Any of this working? No, that's not working either. But, oh, there's spit pass down there. Oh, no, wind is down there. Oh, hello. Yeah, there's a whole load more stuff down here, which I've completely forgotten I got in here. That's works. Oh, Alicia Keys. I've never tried that. I will. What is it? Interstellar, except I haven't got the big screaming organ in there, have I? No, not big screaming organ, but you know what I mean. Okay, just give your email and yeah, very true, very true. We've got a load more stuff actually coming. So, have you checked out Sampled Orchestration in a Weekend, the latest one? I'm really pleased with that. It's a good course. It's a good course. And as an added bonus, there is you get to see my wife dressed up as an elf. Don't ask how she ended up dressed as an elf in Sampled Orchestration in a Weekend. It's a long story. Okay, so are we going to use some bassoon here? No, we're going to go with some bass clarinet. There's something about double reeds which you've got to be careful about, haven't you? Unlively, my template looking unlively. I'll cover it in red and pink and blue and stuff like that if it makes you happy. I mean, it is true, it is a bit drab. Okay, let's have a little look at this. Does it? Why haven't? Well, actually, on my main template, it is very lively. It's. I do use colour. I mean, the thing was, this is a little mobile template which I just loaded up this afternoon. I thought, okay, I'll work with that one. That's all right. And it's just straight out of the box. So, okay, here we go. Let's. Where's my colour palette? I'm going to turn everything pink for International Women's Day. There we go. Look, I hope that makes you happy. Let's have pink everywhere. Oh, now tell me it's unlively. How does that do it, eh? Okay, you mostly use VSL, and I think that they're great. What's the benefit of getting Spitfire? I do love it. I've got some VSL, which I use in my template, which you can see there. The VSL approach in the past, and it's different with Synchron Stage, but in the past was it's recorded very, very dry, and then you add reverb, or you use Mir, their sort of virtual soundstage thing. And that approach, I just don't think works as well as having a really, really nice room sound, which is sort of all baked in. And when I started using this, also the Spitfire, actually the difference, VSL, if you really, really want a really accurate technical reproduction of an instrument, you need a lot of articulations. And VSL's got more articulations than anybody else. Unbelievable number. And if you listen to a line of a piece of a real player playing, and then you try to reproduce it, VSL, it's easier to do than anything else. Because even good old Spitfire it doesn't have the same number of. Hang on, let me just get something up. Let's go into strings. Let's get this up and see a little spinning ball. I'm always nervous when I see a spinning ball, just in case it doesn't open up. Come on. Yeah, this template's still using Contact 5, not Contact 6, which is where I've got everything else. So, I mean, so here is your ensembles. Let's get the rest of the libraries up. Where's symphonic strings? Okay, so if you look at into the individual articulations, violin 1. Okay, so you've got a lot there actually. You've got effects, you got the consordino, blend, sulpont, all the rest of it. But where the VSL scores is, although that looks like a lot of short articulations, there's a lot more you could have. And so VSL is really good at that. I just like the sound of Spitfire. I mean, to be honest, if you look at that list, I mean, for goodness sake, there's a lot there. And I was actually just writing a little thing today about this, and what a lot of the time you end up doing, there is no way that you can have every articulation you're going to need. So what you end up doing, and this is also why I use separate tracks for different articulations, is you end up blending and layering things together, and that works really well. So you can combine two samples together and you get some slightly different thing, which is for me works really well. But look, the tools you use are nothing like as important as the music you write. And so if VSL works for you, that's fantastic. Okay, Jan, nice to see you. Thanks very much for dropping in. So do you upload the live stream to YouTube as soon as you're finished? I don't know. We've never done a live stream before. So if you check back, you'll find out, won't you? You know, what can I say? Maybe we'll make this a sort of regular Friday afternoon thing or something. But who knows? What do you think about the Raven from Slate? Do you think mouse and keyboard is best way to control doors? Personally, you see, I've got the Raven is here. It's sitting in front of me. The reason I don't use its Ravenness very much, I don't use the touchscreen very much, is, as some of you will know, I've got two studios. I've got one at home. You see, this used to be my main studio, and now we've got, I don't know what, 7 people working here, and it gets a little bit busy. And as those of you like Anne, who does this for a living, will know, you need a bit of peace and quiet to get on with your work. And sometimes it's just easier to be somewhere where there's nobody else. And so I've got this home office in my garden, and it's known as the Shed, and I've got another set of kit there, but I don't have another Raven. And actually the whole keys, I'm really used to using various key switches, and what I tend to do is I use the F keys at the top of the keyboard, because I've got 16 of them. If I put my 16 favorite functions there, I don't really need the big touchscreen. The touchscreen thing really comes into its own when you use it with Pro Tools and you're mixing. It's just fantastic. And my friend Stephen Basted, he's got 2 Ravens. He's got 1 Shed, but 2 Ravens. And it's all over the shop, and it just looks nice as well. It looks really, really good. Okay, what else is coming in? Why no I've got Logic Pro X on this. I use Logic sometimes. It's not... I started using Logic because, as I say, half of you are using Logic and half are using Cubase. So I thought, okay, how hard can it be to learn Logic? And I found it quite straightforward to learn, actually, but it does have some really weird things. The way it deals with multi-instruments and things drives me bonkers. You can't use CC7, you have to use CC11. There's all kinds of bits and pieces which kind of irritate me. But also, because when I started looking at Logic, I was still very committed to the big template, and my normal template has 1,200 tracks or something. You would just die trying to do that on Logic. Though I've got a good friend who does have a really big template running on Logic, and it's very impressive. But if you look at, for example, the Spitfire boys, who are very Logic orientated, most of the templates are not that big, but you don't, and I think the way the wind is blowing in their direction now is that actually a huge template is a bit old-fashioned. And whilst if you're going to do a big John Powell crash bang wallop, really huge arrangement, it's necessary. A lot of the stuff you're hearing around now is much simpler. You know, the stuff we're doing here, I mean, this is a tiny template. What's it got? 90 tracks. So it's you could run and it's using 18 gigabytes of RAM. So in reality, you could run this on if I was a little bit careful, I could run this on a MacBook, which is a big advantage. Oh, more questions rolling in. Right now, until the 4-track is Right now, right about the tools, 4-track cassette recorder and dodgy Yamaha keyboard in a tin hut in Bosnia. Richard, I remember it well. Way back in the day in Music for the Media. Now use Studio One. Okay. I haven't tried Studio One. Maybe I should. What do I think about Reaper? Reaper's the one, is a big coming thing. It's the one which I think people like Steinberg feel is the biggest threat as such, because it's sort of quasi-free and it just works so well with, for the games community, lots and lots and lots of people are using it. So because it integrates directly into Wise, I think, which is a middleware for those of you who are into all these things. But it's things like FL Studio, which is not so big with the orchestral people, but their install base is insane, the number of people who are using it. I haven't tried DP10 yet. Sorry, Zurab, I didn't. I used to be on DP all the time, and I really liked it. And the trouble is, when I tried it on a PC, it just didn't work, and I was increasingly concerned about being locked into the. Thank you, Blake. Increasingly concerned about being locked into the world of the Mac, and because this 18-core PC I've got running on the right there was what, £3,500, $5,000. You could, you wouldn't get anywhere close to that in the Mac world. Having that freedom and the ability also to expand with, put more memory and all this and drives and things inside it. Because the Mac Pros look really lovely, the kind of tube thing, but as soon as you actually plug stuff into them, it looks like a hedgehog. There's this wires everywhere. Okay, fair enough. So, but anyway, look, I mean, conversations like that, like this, tend to sort of get down to gear really quickly, and this is a problem because actually, what you should be thinking about, what we all should be thinking about, is writing better music, not necessarily being too fixated on the tools. And when I look at the students, and this is actually, interestingly, this is one of the big difference here on International Women's Day between the male students and the female students is the male students, if they're going to have a problem, a lot of them will get into this kind of rabbit hole where they get obsessed with technology and setting up stuff and never actually, if they spent half as much time concentrating on the music and less on the technology, they'd write a lot better music. Whereas most of the women are much less interested in the software itself. It's a tool to do the job, and so once they are fully fluent on it, they tend to make faster progress because they're more interested in the music and the project they're working on. So there is definitely a difference in the way people approach it, and here on International Women's Day, I must say we're trying very, very hard to encourage more women to come into the business, because still only about 10% of our applicants for the postgraduate program are women, and only about 5% of the games industry is women, and that is frankly completely ridiculous. So, we have a very strong female community in our postgraduate world, so if you're out there and you're thinking about getting into this, do get in touch and we can put you in touch with some of our composers who will encourage you in and give you a sense of, community. Anyway, moving right along, what else is going on here? Do you think Netflix is getting more job to music? Yes. Look, any organization which spends $6 billion in a year on original production is, broadly speaking, is going to offer an awful lot of work. The downside with Netflix, if you work direct, I'm led to, the job I'm doing for Netflix comes through a British production company, and Netflix respect the local agreements, and it's also commissioned through ITV in the UK, which is a big network, and it's all sorted out. The trouble, I think, comes when, if you work with Netflix directly, I think they do buy you out 100%. I have never done that, but, and as a member of forming PRS in the UK, I can't do that. So there is a problem there, because it's just commissioning fee, there's no royalties whatsoever. And for most composers, royalties are an important part of what makes the world go round. So Netflix are a really good thing, because actually, in general, because there is no longer a difference between, that's very true, actually, I'll come to that, between film and television. It's just linear narrative fiction. So, you know, whether you look at what's the difference between Roma and you know, Killing Eve or something. One is episodic and the other is sort of long form. But really, it's not. There's no major difference anymore. And so a lot of films are getting made for slightly lower budgets than they would be if they were done out of a studio in Hollywood. But they're getting made, and they're just tons and tons and tons of stuff out there. And you look at Roma and things like that, and you can see what an enormously rich and diverse platform it's becoming. So it's you know, I think Netflix is, in broadly speaking, a good thing. Right. Let's have a quick look. I was using Studio a long time. After 500 tracks, it fails. Oh, okay. Well, 500, you know, it depends how you spend your 500 tracks. I mean, I've got 200 tracks at Ableton template on a 32 gigabyte RAM. Wow, that's going for it. Now I know Daniel James, and he used to be on Ableton, and he's now largely on Cubase, but uses Ableton for sound design and rewire. A lot of people rewire Ableton into Cubase, which works perfectly well. Can produce music how efficiently? It does. Now, Daniel Martin, indeed. Efficiency, productivity is a huge thing. And because if you can produce 20 minutes of music in a week, you're going to get paid twice as much as if you do 20 minutes of music in a fortnight. So, you know, and also it means that you can, you know, we're looking at this little silly little idea here, but I mean, in reality, if you can produce something in 10 minutes, which sounds nice, or it doesn't sound, you say you don't like it, okay, we just chuck it away and start again, because you haven't invested weeks and weeks and weeks into doing this. It's just something quick and simple. I should really have started this on my big template, because I can hear all kinds of things I do. You see, what I would actually use in here is, I tell you, the thing I really like is, I could always just put in another instrument, couldn't I? Shall we put? How about Proper Contact, the new one? Hello, Proper Contact. I really like some of the original. Where is it? Where's it gone? I had to delete some instruments because I was running out of disk space. That's what. Oh, that's gone offline. Never mind. Where is the original Albion? Because there's some fantastic stuff in there, which is really, really good, and I think better than the later version, to be absolutely honest. I mean, I still use more of the original. God, how much stuff is there in here? Did I add it? Oh no, don't tell me I didn't add it. I only here we go. That's the one. So, you know, and then there's a lesson here. Actually, the lesson here is that just go back to your some old libraries, because many times there's some fantastic stuff in it. That's what I was going to do. I was going to use one of those little things, and actually, if I put the lows in as well, and put them both on the same MIDI channel, I can just play the whole thing in. You see, this, although you will need to, you know, if you're going to, particularly if you're going to work with live players, you have to absolutely score everything out line by line. Yes, they did add the search function. You notice this. When I first looked at it, I missed it, and it's really useful. Do you know what? You're absolutely right. I've just been scrolling up and down, and all I needed to do is type the word Albion, and it would have popped up. Oh, well, what can I possibly say? Okay, so let's see what happens here if I run on. Oh, I tell you what it could do. I could do a slightly I could go into a slightly sort of Philip Glassy, actually not Philip Glass. Who's the? Oh, do you lot know Nico Mooley? Nico Mooley he used to be Philip Glass's assistant, but he's one of the best contemporary classical composers of his generation. He's really sickeningly young. Please add 5 dB to the Cubase volume. Absolutely. Do you want it specifically 5 dB? How about that? Actually, I can do it here. Is that better? Okay, that's what I'll do. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see, so that's if I do that, and then I can do something else. Okay, now I'm going to have to put that on a separate track, aren't I? So what I'm going to have to do is add a MIDI track, and then change the change it back to 1. So I want 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Let's see how that goes. So you've got the phasing thing going. Nearly. Never try and play minimalist music without the click on. Okay, then something's going to happen. Something exciting is going to happen. It's going to be so thrilling. I have no idea what's going to happen. Absolutely no clue. Right. How's it going out there? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have screaming guitar on now. Let's do it. Programming drum. Okay. It reminds me of the softer Williams piece from like the Terminal. Yeah, it's true. It's Alexandre Desplat does this kind of thing as well, and it's really effective. Okay, let's see what I've got in here by way of timps. Wah! Sorry, that was a bit loud. Okay. Yes, I had. The audio credit, I think. Christian Hens from Spitfire Studios has a few good videos how to set up your reverb for orchestral. Yeah, he's very into that, and it is a really big thing. I'll tell you something I discovered quite recently is the importance of setting the preferences in your DAW so that the reverb sends follows the pan. So in other words, if you pan your particularly with things like which are going to be close mic, things like woodwind and stuff like that. If you you pan it 45 degrees left, if you don't have the reverb sends set to follow the pan, it's just going to be pouring down straight down the middle, and so it sounds very weird. It sets reverb up for its music. I mean, this is not a really big template, so there's nothing really very complicated going on in here. I think I've just probably got one track, I mean, normally, what I normally do is the whole thing's, the way I would, on a bigger template, what I'd do is I'd have each of these, all these are just going straight to stereo, but I'd send all the woodwinds to a group called stereo, all the strings to a group called strings, and then they'd all go to different stems, and I'd have one master reverb for each stem, and that definitely works. That's really good. But then, a lot of the time when I'm using the bigger kit, and I'm not using VSL EP at all today, but I would have convolution reverb, sample reverb on the VSL, so that effectively those instruments, like VSL instruments, which are very dry, I'm placing them in the same room, so that it's sort of like a first layer of reverb, which just helps sit all these instruments in the same room. But the most important one of the most important things with the Spitfire stuff is the mic positions, and to use those effectively, because if you do that, it makes the most phenomenal difference to the sound. Actually, I was doing a video yesterday, and I was doing something with Hans Zimmer percussion, and there's a really good example of that in there, how it makes absolutely enormous difference to the sound. Let's see how we can get this going. Where are they on here? Easy mix. I don't want an easy mix. I want the other one. Where's the other one gone? Where's my mic positions gone? I've forgotten where it is. Oh no, that's because it's performance legato. That's right. It doesn't do that, does it? But oh god, I've forgotten. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this has got all three going. So what I've got, I don't know. Can you see that? Oh no, hang on. It's hidden behind my head. That's no good, is it? Hang on, let's see if I can zoom in. Can I zoom in? No, that's the wrong one. Zoom in. Okay, that's not going to work. Oh, stop it, guys. It's all going horribly wrong. Okay. Oh, no, that will work. Hang on. If I do that, and then I move it around until I find the right bit, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Hang on. Get it up. Oh, there we go. Ah, hang on. This is not working at all. This is not. Oh, yes, it is. There you go. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that? I'm not sure what you're saying. Hang on. Look, give up, guy. Go back to where you were. It was more sensible. Right, so look, here we go. There is, if you see, there's the mic positions there. So you've got close, tree, and ambient. And they default to CC 22, 23, and 24. So you can see the little faders going up and down. If you just use all close or all ambient, the difference is enormous. So actually, if you've got, now this is something you'll find difficult to see, but every time you activate another mic position, it loads a whole new level of samples. So this one sample now, because it's got all three mics going, is using 880, what is it, 0.8 of a gigabyte, which is an awful lot. If you turn off the other two mics, it goes down to a third of that. So if you're on a MacBook or something and you're really, now you can purge things and then you'll get rid of pretty much all of it. Yep. But often purge doesn't work very well with legato. Oh, it was good zoomed in, was it? Oh, God. Sorry. Anyway, I will have to set this up rather better in future if we're going to do this again, and see how it goes. But yeah, so because then it does make it easier to see what's going on. But look, so mic positions are a big one, and in some respects, you're playing with the ambience of the room when you do that, and it's really good. So if I prefer, in a way, trying to use mic positions rather than getting too bogged down in complications of reverb, because reverb is obviously going to be artificial, and in the best world, you just use one library. And I know Christian did this a long time ago. He just cleared out everything else and just used his own stuff. And it's quite a big jump, because however good the library, there's going to be a ton of things you haven't got, and you're going to constantly go, oh, I wish I had, oh, I wish I had. And I haven't found any one library which absolutely does everything. So therefore, that's why I use a mixture of stuff. Let's have another look at these questions, which are still flowing in. We can see it before. Okay, like watching an old person trying to wire up a PC. Richard, you. Oh, God, yes. I am that person. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think when you're talking about muddying the mix, and you're absolutely right, and it can sound really sort of swooshy. And what sometimes happens is if you put too much reverb on things, particularly on the demo, and then you score things out and you have it performed live, you go, oh my goodness. You hear all kinds of detail which you missed. And you can sometimes, even when you, if you're going to a live session, you need to go through every line by line. And when you listen to it, then you listen to all the woodwinds together, you suddenly realise harmonically they're doing something completely different to what you thought they were doing in sort of bar 16. So they're playing an A minor and the brass is playing a sort of C major and go, oh my God, how did I miss that? Answer is because you've got a bucket of lexicon or whatever on it and you can't hear it. It just sounds swooshy and nice. Yeah, but that's not really... you absolutely... There's a very sort of modern trend, and modern. I mean, if you listen to Michael Giacchino's stuff or Alexandre Desplat, a lot of it's not big, roomy reverb. It's quite crisp, and it's very much the sound of the room. And the best library to do that is Cinesample. Cinesample stuff sounds brilliant because it's quite dry, but it's the sound of the Sony stage where they record it, and it's just, it's really, really, really good. Okay, so would you recommend recording MIDI without added reverb and adding in the mixing? Yeah. I mean, I tend to I'll work with less reverb when I'm writing so I can hear what's going on. That's certainly true. But a lot of the time when I'm doing television, there isn't any mixing. It's just what you see is what you get. You just bounce it out and that's it, move on. Because you're working really fast, 10 minutes a day sometimes and all that kind of nonsense. But if you are writing 10 minutes of music in a day, it's not going to be as polished and as complicated as if you're doing 2 or 3 minutes for a film, because you don't have the chance to go back and think about it. You just kind of start at 7 o'clock in the morning at bar 1 and hope you've made it to bar 400 by the time you knock off at 7 o'clock in the evening. So the written score for orchestra, do you export MIDI to the notation software or what? Do you use Dorico? No. Yes, that's exactly how it works. So if we were doing this, if this was going to a live orchestra, I would hand this off. I would first of all tidy it up, make sure I'm happy with everything. Then I'd hand it off to my assistant, and he would go through this and ruthlessly quantize everything, because actually it's easier to get all these timings sorted in the DAW. Actually, what they tend to do is they quantize the ends as well. So I can't remember exactly how you do that in this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's just try doing that. Yeah, so that it's as near as damn it to, you quantize all the ends so that when you import it into, and it's mainly Sibelius, it's as neat as possible, because it's a lot easier to sort this stuff out in the DAW than it is in the score reading software, score writing software. So you go through and tidy the whole thing up, export it to Sibelius, import it into Sibelius, and then sort of mess about with it there and make it look lovely. Then whoever's orchestrating does a first pass, and then it comes back to me, and then I change it, and then we do all the parts, and that's that. But if we do it, as I say, if this was going to a live orchestra, we'd probably bounce every line of this out, except the whole thing here would be live. Except piano, a lot of people don't record piano live. If you're on a budget, because it's... Why is that? Because normally you do it in a separate session, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I sometimes record piano here, and then I'll use that. I don't know. Why don't I have piano in sessions? Answers on a postcard. I don't know. Okay, let's have a look. Would you recommend... Richard, yes. San Diego, when preparing the written score, yes. Yes. Dorico is a very good work in progress. It's not quite there yet, I think, I know people are using it for fully blown professional work, but the majority of people are still using Sibelius. There is a big contingent in the States who use Finale still, but the trouble at Sibelius, obviously, is they don't have a development team anymore. They all went to write Dorico. So eventually, Sibelius will fall over and Dorico will take over. Some composers hate sample instruments. Do you feel like that? How much percentage of your shipped scores contain live and samples? You can't hate samples, really. I mean, because even if you're going to work 100% with live players, you're still going to have to present a demo, a really good demo to somebody, or they're not going to write the check. So you can be the world's most live-orientated composer. You see, back in the day, when I first started doing this for a living, composers would play the score on the piano to the film director and say, look, you're going to love it. And they turn up at the studio, and sometimes they would, and sometimes they wouldn't. And so everybody has to do a demo, and they expect it to be a really good one. They expect to hear what they're going to hear on the day. Now you can obviously you can say, look, we're going to use live ney flute, and it's going to sound completely different to this. And sometimes when people do that, rather than putting in a half-assed ney flute, they'll put in something as a sort of complete placeholder, which is clearly not the ney flute. So it's not. So you don't want them to go listen to a really bad sample and go, I don't like that. Let's not use ney flute. But equally, if it's a solo instrument, you'd get it, and it's a decent movie. You do pre-records, and you might even get somebody to play on the demo. So people are hearing. It depends on the size of the project, doesn't it? Somewhere based hate samples. What proportion? Well, on Robozuna, this Netflix job we're doing, we did 2 live sessions, so we had quite a lot of live music, which we could then use as effectively as library, so we can keep cutting it into episodes in the show until we get maximum value from it. And that's really good. Most of the stuff, though, doesn't have live players on for telly. For the animation stuff, which I spend most of my life doing, except stuff which I play myself, and I'll get as much stuff as I can and play it. You can see my Cora sitting. Can you see the Cora over there? Just a second. You can't see the Cora over there because it's hidden. I love this instrument. Look, hang on. Let's get back on. Let's sort my camera out. This is my Cora. Ta-da! And I got it from a really cool, very alternative bloke in Brighton. And look at that. Those of you know, Coras normally have these leather bands, which is how you tune it. But look, it's got machine heads, so you can really tune it properly. And trouble is, I can't play the thing for love nor money, because what you're supposed to be able to do is it tunes. It's so out of tune, probably. It goes sort of, if you play a scale, once you've got yourself sorted, it goes left, right, left, right, left, right as it goes up. So, and then the high strings up here. And what they do is they play rhythm with these fingers, and then they play the tune with these fingers. I can't do any of that. So what I do is I just multi-track it. So I'll do 3 layers of multi-track, and it sounds sort of, but it's still, it's a live instrument. It sounds great. So, when I use it, there's no question that it's not a sample, because it's, my playing, it makes it very, very clear it's not a sample, but it's super duper, and I really, really like using as many sort of live things like that as humanly possible. I just think it's great. Makes it worth going to work. And I've done all kinds of things. Sometimes it does take a lot longer, so you have to be quite careful that you're not backing yourself into a corner if you're then going to be expected to turn out 5 minutes of that a day. But yeah, I could just sample it. No. Hi, who's this? Yenix. Hello, Yenix. Fantasy music, Cora solo. I have used Cora in a film, and it was absolutely really, really fantastic. And it's nice working with those kind of players as well, because they're very sort of collaborative and and improvisation. It's just the longer you do it, actually working with live players becomes one of the sort of great joys, because it's a sort of great sort of collaborative thing, and it feels really great. But having fantastic technology to support you is pretty important as well. Demo love, as Pro Tools Fam says, is a real problem. But more often than not, if you're doing a good job and you're writing, if you're going to go to, if it's going to be live orchestra, very, very rarely do people say, I'm not sure I preferred the demo. It does sometimes happen, and this is, with the big action stuff, it can go wrong if you're not playing with really, really good players, because it doesn't necessarily sound as tight as the samples can, and the samples sound unrealistically tight. And this is how the whole remote control approach to recording where you have a pizzicato session and a short session and a long session, and so it's really built up in this kind of modular sort of way. But it's very difficult to do that and to do it well. Okay, I'd love to say your name, Raithegret. Recording string players. If you're going for your first recordings with live people, write sympathetically. Don't try and write something which is ridiculously difficult, because it'll sound rubbish. It is far, far better to write something dead simple which is going to sound lovely than something really unnecessarily difficult which has got uncomfortable triple stops and all that kind of nonsense in it. I mean, the whole point is you've got to be very, very well prepared, because there is this sort of confidence thing which happens in live sessions. If things come out as written, everything's well organized, the players become confident, they start playing better. As soon as they start finding dodgy mistakes in the scores, confidence it's like a balloon, it's punctured, and you can just hear it ebbing away from the session, and then nothing sounds so good anymore after that. So be very, very well prepared, check everything through, play back the Sibelius, compare it to the score, play back the demo, compare it to the Sibelius. Do go over and over and over this until you're 100% sure that what's on the paper is what you mean and everything's going to come out right. And actually, if you play stuff back on Sibelius using the built-in sounds, they sound so awful that if there's any sort of slightly weird chromaticism going on in there which was unintended, it will stand out like a sore thumb. So that's what I used to do. I mean, I spent many years in hotel rooms the night before sessions just playing things back over and over and over again. So yeah, write simple, effective music is what I would say. Okay. What's this out for Jeff Russo? Yeah, Jeff Russo he's marvelous. God, he's good. He's really flying at the moment. Did he not do Fargo? The sort of reinterpretation of the Fargo music. And what did I hear him do the other day? Something extremely good. Anyway, no, he's definitely one to watch. Okay, you built your own tagelharper. There wasn't a sample. Oh wow. Oh yeah, but Dark Era might have released it, but I'll have to go and listen because I haven't got a tagelharper. But wasn't it more fun building it? Really? Of course it was. Right. Dorico is real Sibelius, actually. Ha ha, yes, indeed. Exactly. Would you like to see in the future sample libraries? Any specific features or idea? I mean, I really was a big fan when Spitfire started doing the Labs project, and I really liked Sonicature and what's the other lot I've recently started? Oh, Impact Soundworks. These slightly smaller organisations who are just doing different, interesting stuff. I just think it's really it's getting away. The problem with the big orchestral thing is it's all obviously been done, and if they're going to do it again and do it better, it probably means spending yet more money. So it gets more and more expensive, and there's fewer and fewer people who are going to buy it. So it's almost a diminishing return. So we've probably got to the point where nobody's going to come out of the woodwork and say, right, we're now going to do the definitive sample library, because there's just not going to be enough people who haven't already spent thousands on Spitfire, 8DO, East-West, all the rest of it. So I think the future of sampling, the future of sampling arguably is live music, but also in sound design. It's playing live stuff into an audio track and messing about with it and using, FL and Ableton and all these other tools to do interesting stuff. So normally the answer to your question is probably the future of samples is not samples. It's something which sounds different. Okay, fantasy music. Yep, it was a great learning experience to build it and play it a bit. Oh, well, look, if you post in the comments underneath here, and if you've got some, we'd love to hear it, wouldn't we, everybody? Yes, we'd love to hear your home-built instrument leaping into life. I think that would be great. Okay, really think you should be a regular. Look, Santiago, thank you for your support. I would. If I can possibly get into a run where I can make myself free on Friday afternoon to do this, wouldn't that be fun, eh? And now I know this works. Because I didn't go out of my way to promote this, because I was thinking this morning, should I do this? Should I not do this? So we tried it, and we tried it on a little sort of hidden YouTube channel just to make sure it worked, and it sort of did. Okay, what's the worst that could happen? So anyway, okay. Would it be a bad idea to bleed stems together via buses, such as sending a send from the cello to the clarinets pan far right to mimic the idea of that? I probably wouldn't do that. I think probably the next time we do this, I'll get my normal rig up so I can show you the routing and all the rest of it. It's better to keep it all. It doesn't make any difference. At the end of the day, it's better to keep them separate until the last possible moment, to be honest, because then you've got more control over it. And yeah, when you'd have stems, you've obviously got to keep the reverb separate. Because once you start, as soon as the reverb is separate from the dry signal, you've got a problem, because then you turn one down and the other stays like you get into all kinds of hell, and oh no, what's going on? Where's that sound? The worst thing is when you're playing away. It's not the worst thing in the world that you can't work out where the reverb's coming from. There are worse things in the world than not being able to know where the reverb's coming from. But you're playing this. I've turned it down and I can still hear this big echoey thing. And oh, what's going on? And you need to be. So you do need, when you're setting up your template, to be quite aware. And the idea is that you keep the reverb sends, the reverb return as close as possible to the original. So you shouldn't have, for example, clarinet coming out of a clarinet, going into woodwind, coming out of the woodwind, going into stem, and have the stem, the reverb, sort of too away from the original sound, because then you can change the volume of one without it being locked to the other, and then you end up with this weird out of phase thing where you've got more reverb than. God, that was the worst explanation ever. It's much easier to show you. I'll show you next time. And I will definitely work on my zooming capabilities, because my zooming capabilities are a bit dodgy at the moment. Look, it all works though. Look, we use this really cool system called Wirecast, which allows you to sort of do all kinds of great stuff like this. And actually, it's much more powerful than this. You can have multiple cameras and graphics and all this kind of thing. But we started using this when we started doing these live things for the students, and it's really, really good system, and we like it. I just owned Chris Hine Ensemble Strings. Oh, right. That's an interesting one. I haven't come across that yet. I really like Chris Hine's stuff. His big band sort of jazz brass sections are the best of the lot. And how do I get inspired to write? Normally, well, I might sometimes hear a piece of music and think, I really like that idea, and I wonder what I could do which would be in that sort of space. Sometimes I'll just accidentally come up with something and think, oh, I quite like that. I mean, it's just like, this little thing we were doing here, this piano thing, which, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's a bit derivative, but it's, so you see what I'm doing. But it's, it's 4 notes. And as you hear it and you go, come on, play. Any sound, whenever you're ready, Cubase, leap into life, come on. It's not very original, actually. It's, it does sound very much sort of, but if you're just playing, sometimes it's a chord sequence. You know, and it's just where it leads you. And it's actually, and I've realised quite recently, this is not something which a lot of people do, that if you have a sort of certain fluidity about the way you can improvise, and I'm the worst performer in the world. I mean, my sight reading is so bad. I know everybody says that, but really so bad. And I've almost deliberately avoided it because I just want to be able to improvise straight onto the keyboard without thinking about it too much. And so what I'm tending to do is seeing chord shapes and seeing relationships and thinking, okay, if I go to D minor, then I could try the B flat root, and if I'm doing that, then I can just drop that B flat down to an A, and then I've got an F with. So you think it really, really fast, and it seems spontaneous, but actually, if you slow it down, you're thinking things through logically. Actually, okay. Let's more. By the way, do you mean? MFTM. Absolutely, I recognise your name actually. Oh, well done, Martin. That's brilliant, excellent. Yeah, Music for the Media has launched many a career. I know. So I'm really pleased to hear that. Well done. Okay, Michael Giacchino versus John Powell versus Brian Tyler. I'm not a huge Brian Tyler fan, to be absolutely honest. I mean, it's very well produced, but I think it's in a fairly narrow genre. Anyway, look, each their own. Michael Giacchino's very, very good, and things like Up are just what he's good at. Is he's got a very original approach to the sound, and he writes modern music with all the charm of old film music, and that's quite a hard one to pull off. Things like Up is what I'm thinking about. John Powell is absolute. Hello, Lassie. He's absolutely the top of his game. And I was listening to some of his stuff from How to Train Your Dragon 2 the other day, and the complexity of the music but it sounds so good. It doesn't sound complicated, but when you really listen to it, it's really hard to play, and it's really well written. He knows his stuff inside out, and is a delightful bloke, apparently. I've never met him, but So it's... When you say Samarth, Michael Giacchino versus, I'm quite keen to avoid versus, to be honest. I think there's far too many. This industry is so competitive, and everybody is so me, and all the rest of it. I just kind of try and get away from that if at all possible. It's very hard because everything's a pitch, but it just doesn't turn you into a very nice person. So I like to try and think of things in a more collaborative spirit. Let's go with that. Inspiration. If you jam along with a piece of music completely opposite to what you wanted to write, helps. It's true. Yeah, that's good. That's, it's very true. Do you have any idols that you like to follow in style of sometimes? Oh, plenty. I think, who's writing the best film music at the moment? I think probably Thomas Newman is outstandingly good. Alexandre Desplat, though he probably writes too much and actually would benefit when he really spends a lot of time on a score, something like Fantastic Mr. Fox and things like that. It's just inspiringly brilliant. And I think if you listen to Benjamin Button, I think that is a work of complete genius. It's absolutely brilliant from beginning to end. It's so many clever things going on in there, but the reason I think these people are so good is because of the way their music speaks to the picture. And there's this wonderful alchemy between the picture and the music that just creates something different. And it's the tension between the two sometimes, which is so good. So it's really easy sometimes to just as film school fans listening to film scores all the time, but you really have to see it in the context of the picture. And sometimes it's really interesting. I listened to Skyfall before I saw the movie, and I thought, okay, this is nice. This is good. I like this, yeah. And then I saw the movie, and I thought, oh, God, this music is brilliant, because you suddenly saw how effortlessly it in sort of underscored the narrative arc of the whole film, not just the scene. It's just really, because the whole point of being a film composer, the clue's in the name, isn't it? And it's the film bit, and you've just got to be on it in terms of understanding the project, and all the best really understand the project. But I'm always looking at, I'm really interested in other people, and and in the world of classical music, I listen to a lot of contemporary classical stuff. Check out Sally Beamish, an English composer, absolutely wonderful. There's lots of really, really good people out there who are doing interesting and different things, and it's not necessarily in a filmic context, but you listen to something and think that is a really original approach to that. And I was listening to some Brazilian hip hop the other day, as you do, and I thought, actually, this is really clever. These people are doing something quite different to other people. Anyway, so I think the answer is, I don't know how we got onto that, but listen widely and don't get caught into the little ghetto that is film music, because ultimately, if all we listen to is film music, it's like it's cannibalism, isn't it? We just kind of, I go out there, I eat some John Williams music, and I vomit up something which sounds a little bit like John Williams, and thus it goes on and on and on until we're all kind of, yeah. Anne Dudley is an exceptionally fine musician, really, really good. I was sitting on a jury when she did, what was it? Which was the score? Oh, it was Full Monty. Now, and she won an Oscar for that, but there was like 11 minutes of original music in the whole film, but it was brilliantly done. And she'd done all kinds of really clever things. And okay, there was only 11 minutes of music in the score. But then I heard another piece of music she did. Oh, no, that's when I was sitting on this jury. And it was a film which went nowhere, but it was so well scored. And it didn't win because nobody really knew the film or liked the film very much. And that was a really shame. And so she absolutely, definitely, she's an inspiring character. She's very, very clever composer. And, big fan. She's very good at what she does. Yes, absolutely listen to classical music. I cannot understand classical music. Well, we are writing for picture, but they don't. They still can pierce emotion. Okay, interesting. So I was with Bruce Broughton a couple of weeks ago in Los Angeles, and he's a really nice man, and we may well be doing a sort of educational project together. But he was writing a concert piece at the time, as well as he's written some fantastic film scores and television. We were talking about how different the two are. And if you write a concert piece, it is just a different animal. And also, I go on about productivity and knocking out 5-10 minutes a day type thing. But there's as much. It's as hard. A friend of mine actually was saying it's as hard to write slowly as it is to write fast. And there's a great deal in that. And I think you learn a lot from writing slowly, and you learn a lot from listening to people who've written classical pieces. I was listening to a piece by Roxana Ponifnik, who's a really talented British composer, who once bought a flat I lived in. Anyway, so she lives in London. She's an exceptionally good composer, and she writes really interesting tonal contemporary music, and I think that's a sort of space. There's a whole interesting space where people are experimenting with new things, which is not serialism and sort of the whole Darmstadt thing, and which is all a bit passé now, and it's not straight minimalism, but it's sort of some wonderful sort of combination of lots of different influences. That's this is why I like Nico Muhly, because he's got a lot to say. And he does film stuff, and as well. Just aim to score a few pieces for a TV show. Way, well done. Yay. Well, go for it, because from small things. I mean, it may not be. Do I do harmony exercises on piano? No, not at all. I should. If ever I had any time, I would definitely jump back into harmony and all the rest of it, and just bury myself in that for a bit. But I really haven't had any time at all. I do too many things. I I was up at sort of 7 o'clock this morning writing some stuff, and writing text stuff, and then had some meetings, and now writing music, and now I'm talking with you lot. It's a full life but a happy one. But nonetheless, oh my lord, will this be on YouTube later on? Yeah, I suspect so. Why not? I mean, it's now it's out there. I think I disabled the auto-publish function in case it went horribly wrong. But despite the fact that poor old Beethoven here has fallen off his seat, mind you, given he was dead 200 years ago, that's not exactly the worst thing that's happened to him, is it? Okay, which do you prefer, the score of the Star Wars series or the score of the Lord of the Rings series? Which inspired me? I think probably Star Wars, but and it's really clever, and it's a really interesting example, because if you take the picture away, it's a classic swashbuckling score which has no reference to space at all. So what he was doing was scoring the underlying spirit of the film, not what he was seeing on the screen. And that's a really important lesson to draw from that. That a lot of the time, what you're doing is scoring the director's vision and the whole ethos of the film and the whole narrative arc, not necessarily looking at the picture and saying, there's a spaceship, I better make this sound spacey, because that's fairly two-dimensional. So it's important to, I mean, a lot of the stuff I do is animation, as you know, and a lot of that is you score what you see. So there's no hidden depths in that. Scratch the surface and that's it. But that's also why people like doing film, because film, is a three-dimensional thing, and you can just dive in and have interesting things to say. Right. Actually, the John Williams score, there's another film. I can't remember what it's called. I always forget the name, and then people come back and remind me. And which the theme is almost identical. It's a sort of 50s swashbuckling, but this doesn't, and you can't get too bogged down in what sounds similar to something else. And I hate it when people do that, because it doesn't really matter. It's he's created an iconic work of genius, and it will live on for centuries. People will be listening to the Star Wars theme because it's both of its time and also forever. So it's really good. Okay, do you have a course that covers hitting cuts in Cubase? I've seen your stuff on DP and watch this space. We'll come back to that at some point in the not too distant future. Do you work with vocals, not choir, but sopranos? I really wondered how to communicate with a vocal. I can write for cello, but how to write for vocal? I've never worked with a choir, actually. I've worked with some solo vocalists. I did a film called Frozen a little while ago, not the one, not the famous one, but another one. And it was a psychological thriller, and I had a really interesting Romanian vocalist in, and she was largely improvising. I like working with solo musicians because you are just, and the more kind of laid back the setting, the better. King's Row, thank you very much, David. That's the John Williams one. Okay, but it's, yeah, I mean, Cornwall, that's the one. When I work with vocalists, I tend to write a piano guide and give them a lyric sheet as far as it's necessary. But it is always necessary. You never say to a vocalist, you just want to go They don't really like that. And they much prefer having something to sing. And it can be really, really rewarding, because it is less predictable working with a vocalist than working with as you say, when you're working with the cellist, you've got a fairly good idea what's going to come out. With a vocalist, it's much less so, and that's part of the excitement. It's like, Christmas morning opening your presents. What is going to be in there? You hope it's something nice. Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, the stem thing. Okay, well, next time we do this, I'll have the full setup, and I can walk you through it, because it's complicated. What have we got going on here? That's the one. I think I am shortly going to have to wind this up, because we've been doing this quite a long time. How long have we been on? This must have been going on, 88 minutes? Have I been doing this for an hour and a half? I normally run out of steam at an hour and a half. I've discovered this from talking to the students, that we do workshops like this, which just go on and on and on. But after about an hour and a half, it's kind of, where am I? So look, we are going to wind this up. But look, I think this has been it's been a fairly successful little enterprise. I've enjoyed doing this, and it's very nice being able to chat with you as well as and answer some of your questions and hear your points of view as well, because that's it's very nice that it's a sort of two-way street, and that's absolutely great. So look, I'm going to wind this up for now, and we will definitely do this again. And next time I'll try and give everybody a bit of warning so that you know it's going to happen. But I think this Friday afternoon thing's not bad. Are there people out there from the United States? Because I'm aware that 6:20 on a Friday will be, 10 in Los Angeles. So it's probably not a bad time. So spread the love and let people know about this, and we'll do some more because it's quite fun. And we'll get some gear up and we'll write some music and we'll do a bit of chat and answer your questions. And I must get more tea laid in next time. But anyway, look, so from the time being, thank you very much indeed for your company. And I look forward to doing this again. So have fun making music, and we will see each other again very soon, I hope. Cheerio.